no respect there? Huh? You go to Nigeria, can you do what you are doing there? You go to shop, if you go ambassador, they'll charge you. What do you mean? Have you seen any Ghana selling in Nigeria before? Don't think we are joking.
If you go,
when you come, you don't take any Ghanaian. You go, they will bring you there. They will come and fool you.
Make we take a hand lock. Come on, make we take a hand lock.
Go Nigeria now. Order. Tell me what? Who can I need back? Who can I need back?
Dear brothers and sisters of Ghana, esteemed leaders of the Republic of Ghana, and fellow Africans across our great continent, I stand before you today not as a stranger from afar, but as a brother from Burkina Faso, a nation bound to yours by the unbreakable threads of our shared history, our common struggles, and our collective dreams for a united Africa. My name is Ibrahim Traoré, and I speak to you with the weight of Pan-Africanism on my heart, a philosophy forged in the fires of colonialism's defeat, championed by visionaries like Kwame Nkrumah, your own founding father, who dreamed of an Africa where borders dissolve into brotherhood, where the prosperity of one nation lifts all others. Yet, it pains me deeply to address an issue that strikes at the very core of this ideal. The recent actions by Ghanaian authorities to close shops owned by our Nigerian brothers and sisters, and the attempts to deport them back to their homeland. This, my friends, is not just a policy misstep. It is a grave wound to the soul of Africa, a betrayal of the Pan-African spirit that Nkrumah himself embodied when he declared, "We face neither east nor west. We face forward." Let us delve into the heart of this matter. For years, Nigerians have come to Ghana not as invaders, but as entrepreneurs, traders, and contributors to your vibrant economy. They have opened shops, invested their sweat and savings, and woven themselves into the fabric of Ghanaian society. These are not faceless outsiders. They are Africans building bridges across our artificial borders, fostering trade that echoes the ancient routes of our ancestors, from the salt caravans of the Sahel to the gold markets of the Ashanti. But now, under the guise of enforcing retail laws, Ghana has shuttered these businesses, forcing families to pack up their lives and face the uncertainty of deportation. This is not protectionism. It is division. It sends a chilling message that echoes the colonial tactics of divide and rule, pitting African against African in a zero-sum game that benefits no one but the ghosts of our oppressors. Consider the profound damage this inflicts on Pan-Africanism. Our continent's strength lies in unity, in the free movement of people, goods, and ideas as envisioned in the African Union's Agenda 2063. When Ghana closes its doors to Nigerians, it undermines the very protocols we have signed, protocols for visa-free travel, for economic integration through the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. How can we build a single market if we treat our neighbors as threats rather than partners? Nkrumah warned us, divided we are weak. United, Africa could become one of the greatest forces for good in the world. Yet, these actions divide us, fostering resentment where there should be solidarity. Nigerians in Ghana are not taking jobs. They are creating them, employing locals, sourcing goods from Ghanaian farmers, and stimulating markets that benefit everyone. To deport them is to reject the Pan-African call for mutual upliftment, turning our backs on the lessons of liberation movements where Burkinabe fought alongside Ghanaians against imperialism. Now, let us examine the economic folly of this path, for it is not just a moral failing but a practical disaster that will hinder Ghana's own development. A thriving economy is not built in isolation. It flourishes through diversity, through the influx of foreign talent, investment, and innovation. Foreigners, be they Nigerians, Burkinabe, or from any corner of Africa, bring fresh ideas, capital, and networks that expand markets beyond national boundaries. Think of the remittances they send home, which cycle back through regional trade. Think of the skills they transfer, training local artisans and entrepreneurs. By closing Nigerian shops, Ghana is not protecting its citizens. It is starving its economy of vitality. Retail sectors that once buzzed with activity will fall silent, leading to empty storefronts, lost revenues, and a ripple effect that touches suppliers, transporters, and consumers alike. Development stalls when isolation sets in. Infrastructure projects languish without foreign partnerships. Tourism dwindles as word spreads of unwelcoming policies, and innovation suffers without the cross-pollination of ideas. Worse still, this short-sighted approach will deter foreigners from coming to Ghana altogether. Why would an investor from Lagos or Ouagadougou choose Accra as a hub when they fear arbitrary closures and expulsions? Ghana has long prided itself as a beacon of stability in West Africa, attracting diaspora and entrepreneurs with its democratic credentials and economic promise. But these actions tarnish that reputation, signaling to the world that Ghana is turning inward, embracing xenophobia over openness. As foreigners hesitate, capital flight accelerates. Businesses relocate to more welcoming neighbors like Côte d'Ivoire or Senegal, taking jobs and opportunities with them. The loss is not abstract. It is measurable in declining foreign direct investment, reduced trade volumes, and a shrinking tax base that strains public services. And as this unfolds, mark my words, Ghana's economy will be reduced to nothing if this continues unchecked. Inflation will surge as supply chains disrupt. Nigerian traders often source affordable goods that keep prices low for everyday Ghanaians. Without them, monopolies form, costs rise, and the cedi weakens further against regional currencies. Economic instability follows. Unemployment climbs as ancillary jobs vanish, social tensions brew between locals and remaining foreigners, and investor confidence erodes, leading to volatile markets and potential credit downgrades. History teaches us this lesson repeatedly, from the protectionist pitfalls of post-independence economies to the global recessions triggered by closed borders. A successful economy needs foreigners to thrive. They are the lifeblood of growth, injecting diversity that sparks competition, efficiency, and resilience. Without them, stagnation sets in, turning a once promising nation into a shadow of its potential. Ghana, I implore you to stop this wicked movement before it escalates into something unbearable, something you will all regret. This is not mere rhetoric. It is a warning born of observation and shared experience. What begins as shop closures can spiral into retaliatory measures. Nigeria may respond in kind, closing Ghanaian businesses in Abuja or Lagos, fracturing the economic community of West African states, ECOWAS, that we all rely on for peace and prosperity. Tensions could ignite border disputes, refugee crises, or even diplomatic breakdowns, echoing the conflicts that have scarred our region in the past. And in the midst of this, ordinary people suffer. Families torn apart, children denied education, communities divided by suspicion. We have seen it before in the expulsions of the 1960s and 1970s, where short-term nationalism led to long-term poverty and isolation. This, my dear Ghanaian brothers and sisters, is not the Africa we envision, not the Africa we fought for, bled for, and continue to build with every ounce of our collective will. It is not an Africa where fellow Africans are denied the right to live, work, and thrive among their kin, where the soil of one nation becomes hostile ground for the dreams of another. Imagine, if you will, a continent where a Nigerian trader in Accra is treated as an enemy rather than an ally. A place where the simple act of setting up shop to sell goods, to exchange ideas, to build families across borders is met with suspicion and expulsion. This is an Africa fractured by fear, where unjust policies target not foreign invaders from distant lands, but our own people, bound by the same bloodlines, the same struggles against poverty, inequality, and underdevelopment. These policies, cloaked in the language of national interest, are nothing short of discriminatory edicts that echo the arbitrary divisions imposed by colonial mapmakers, who drew lines on paper without regard for our tribes, our trade routes, or our shared destinies. Such actions will only draw us backwards, propelling us into the dark abyss of conflict and stagnation that we have worked so hard to escape. History is replete with warnings. Look to the Biafran War in Nigeria, where ethnic tensions and economic grievances spiraled into a catastrophe that claimed millions of lives and set back development for generations. Or recall the border skirmishes between Ethiopia and Eritrea, where nationalist fervor wasted precious resources on warfare instead of schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. If Ghana persists in this path, alienating Nigerians and sowing seeds of resentment, we risk igniting similar fires across West Africa. Resources that could fuel education, healthcare, and innovation will be squandered on military mobilizations, refugee camps, and diplomatic crises. Billions in potential trade through the AFCFTA that promises to lift 30 million Africans out of poverty will evaporate as trust erodes. Development opportunities vanish. Foreign aid dries up when donors see instability, skilled professionals flee to safer havens in Europe or America, and our youth, deprived of cross-border exchanges, grow up in echo chambers of nationalism rather than the global mindset needed to compete in the 21st century. We slide backwards into a cycle of poverty, where GDP growth halts, currencies devalue, and the promise of Agenda 2063, an Africa integrated and prosperous, becomes a distant mirage. We as Africans must learn to coexist among ourselves, embracing the diversity that is our greatest strength, not succumbing to the puppet strings of division pulled by external forces or internal insecurities. For too long, we have been manipulated by colonial legacies that pitted tribe against tribe, by neo-colonial interests that exploit our disunity to extract resources without fair return. When Ghana enacts policies that make Africa unsafe and unconducive for Africans, we play right into those hands, turning our continent into a chessboard where we are the pawns. Coexistence means more than tolerance. It means active collaboration. It means recognizing that a Nigerian entrepreneur in Kumasi brings not just goods, but knowledge of fintech innovations from Lagos, agricultural techniques from the Niger Delta that can empower Ghanaian farmers and startups. It means fostering environments where Africans can move freely, as in the European Union, where borders facilitate prosperity rather than hinder it. Without this, we create ghettos of exclusion. Nigerians feeling unwelcome in Ghana, Ghanaians wary in Nigeria, and the entire ECOWAS bloc weakened, vulnerable to external shocks like climate change, pandemics, or global recessions that demand unified responses. This kind of news, the headlines of shop closures, deportations, and protests, should never grace our airwaves or newspapers. It tarnishes Africa's image on the global stage, portraying us as incapable of self-governance, still shackled by the mental chains of colonialism. These actions by Ghanaians toward Nigerians are not just regrettable. They are profoundly damaging, evoking the era when colonial powers expelled undesirables to maintain control, or when post-independence leaders like Idi Amin in Uganda deported Asians, leading to economic collapse. The impact is insidious. It revives colonial mentalities of us versus them, where Africans internalize the oppressor's divide and conquer strategy, eroding the solidarity that fueled our independence movements. In Ghana, a nation that led the Pan-African charge under Nkrumah, such behavior is beneath your dignity. It's rubbish, a petty squabble that distracts from real challenges like youth unemployment, climate resilience, and technological advancement. Come on, Ghana, you are bigger than this. You are the Black Star of Africa, a symbol of hope and progress, not a perpetrator of policies that echo the very imperialism you overthrew. Stop now, I urge you, and make peace with Nigerians and Nigeria. Extend the olive branch through dialogue, reopen those shops, revoke deportation orders, and reaffirm your commitment to regional harmony. Peace is not passive, it requires deliberate steps. Joint economic forums where Ghanaian and Nigerian leaders negotiate fair trade practices, cultural exchanges that celebrate our shared heritage from the empires of Ghana and Mali to the modern rhythms of Afrobeats and highlife. By making peace, you unlock synergies, Nigerian oil expertise aiding Ghana's energy sector, Ghanaian stability attracting Nigerian investments in tourism and manufacturing. Delve into the possibilities. Imagine a West Africa where markets in Accra and Lagos are interconnected hubs, driving growth rates that rival Asia's tigers, lifting millions from poverty through shared prosperity rather than exclusion. But if we fail to act, the fractures deepen, resentment festers, and what could be a renaissance turns into regression, with generations paying the price for our short-sightedness. The damage of these actions, my fellow Africans, might not be immediately visible, lurking in the shadows like a gathering storm that whispers rather than roars. Today, the closures and deportations may seem like minor adjustments, a mere enforcement of local laws that cause temporary disruptions. A shop shuttered here, a family relocated there. But make no mistake, the true harm festers beneath the surface, compounding over time until it erupts in ways that will leave scars for generations. In the years to come, Ghana may awaken to hollowed-out markets where innovation once thrived, to a workforce depleted of the entrepreneurial spirit that Nigerians infused into your retail, tech, and service sectors. Regrets will mount as economic indicators turn southward. Foreign investment portfolios shrink, regional trade pacts like ECOWAS falter under mutual distrust, and the youth of Ghana find fewer opportunities at home, forcing them into the perilous migrations we all decry. Had I known, leaders will lament in hindsight, echoing the sorrowful refrains of past African nations that embraced isolationism only to face decades of recovery. Think of Zimbabwe's land reforms in the early 2000s, which promised empowerment but delivered hyperinflation and food shortages years later, or South Africa's xenophobic outbreaks in 2008 and beyond, which damaged its global image and deterred diaspora investments long after the violence subsided. These are not isolated cases but patterns. Short-term policies that prioritize exclusion sow long-term weeds of underdevelopment, choking growth and leaving a legacy of what-ifs that haunt boardrooms, parliaments, and family dinner tables alike. Live and let live. This timeless principle is not just a proverb but one of Africa's unwritten laws, etched into our communal ethos from the savannas of the Sahel to the forests of the Congo Basin. A guiding light that has allowed our diverse peoples to share lands, resources, and destinies for millennia. It is the essence of Ubuntu, the philosophy that declares "I am because we are," reminding us that harming another diminishes us all. In abiding by this, we honor the ancestral wisdom that sustained empires like Songhai and Ashanti, where traders from distant regions were welcomed, not walled off, fostering prosperity through mutual respect. To violate it now, in the name of protectionism, is to unravel the social fabric that holds Africa together. Communities where Nigerians and Ghanaians intermarry, collaborate on businesses, and celebrate festivals side by side. Without live and let live, we descend into a continent of suspicion, where every neighbor is a potential rival, eroding the trust essential for collective progress. Be it in combating Ebola outbreaks that required cross-border cooperation or harnessing the blue economy along our shared Atlantic coasts. Ghana, by embracing this law, you reaffirm Africa's resilience. Reject it, and you invite a cascade of retaliations that could turn West Africa into a patchwork of hostilities, wasting energies on conflicts rather than the upliftment of our people. Consider this vivid truth. If a Ghanaian man and a Nigerian man stand together on the streets of London, Paris, or Berlin, the Europeans do not see two separate entities divided by passports or accents. They see Africans, brothers from the same vast, vibrant continent, embodying the strength and potential that commands respect or, at times, envy. To the world beyond our shores, we are one people, sharing the legacy of resilience against slavery, colonialism, and modern exploitation. Our diaspora communities thrive precisely because they unite under this banner, pooling resources in associations like the African Union Diaspora Network to send billions in remittances back home. So why, then, this senseless fight against your own brother here on African soil? It is a self-inflicted wound, born of misplaced nationalism that ignores our interconnected fates. Nigerians sourcing cocoa from Ghanaian farms, Ghanaians benefiting from Nigerian fintech giants like Flutterwave expanding into Accra. This internal strife only empowers external actors. Multinational corporations exploit our divisions to negotiate unfair deals, while global powers watch with glee as we weaken ourselves, diverting attention from pressing issues like debt traps from China or climate vulnerabilities that demand unified advocacy at forums like the UN. Fighting brothers achieves nothing but mutual diminishment, turning potential allies into adversaries and squandering the demographic dividend of our youthful population on grudges rather than growth. Take it or leave it, Nigerians have contributed massively to the Ghanaian economy, injecting vitality through investments, trade, and human capital that have propelled sectors from banking to entertainment. Their presence has not been parasitic but symbiotic. Nigerian banks like Access and Zenith have established branches in Ghana, channeling billions in loans to local enterprises and creating thousands of jobs for Ghanaians in finance and customer service. In the informal economy, Nigerian traders have revolutionized retail by introducing competitive pricing and diverse goods, from electronics to fashion, which stimulate consumer spending and bolster tax revenues for public infrastructure. Educationally, Nigerian students flock to Ghanaian universities, paying fees that fund scholarships and campus expansions, while Nigerian professionals, doctors, engineers, and IT experts fill skill gaps, transferring knowledge that elevates local capabilities. Culturally, the fusion of Nollywood and Gallywood has birthed a booming film industry, attracting tourists and exporting African stories globally, generating foreign exchange. These contributions are not anecdotal but evidenced in trade balances, where Nigerian exports to Ghana, ranging from petroleum products to manufactured goods, support energy security and industrial inputs, preventing shortages that could cripple factories and farms. We should not use some policy, arbitrary and often selectively enforced, to kill the struggles of these Nigerians over the years, extinguishing the flames of perseverance that have built empires from humble beginnings. Many arrived in Ghana decades ago, fleeing economic hardships or seeking opportunities, investing their life savings into businesses that weathered recessions, pandemics like COVID-19, and currency fluctuations. Their struggles mirror our own. The Nigerian tailor in Kumasi who started with a single sewing machine, now employing apprentices and supplying markets. The entrepreneur from Abuja who navigated bureaucratic hurdles to launch a logistics firm, easing supply chains for Ghanaian exporters. To wield policies like the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act as weapons against them is to invalidate these narratives of grit, akin to erasing chapters from Africa's story of self-reliance. Such measures don't just displace individuals. They dismantle networks, supplier relationships, mentorship programs, community initiatives that have taken years to cultivate, leading to irreplaceable losses in social capital. In delving deeper, consider the human cost. Families uprooted after building lives, children interrupted in schools where they've learned Twi alongside Yoruba, elders stripped of the dignity earned through honest labor. Policies should protect and promote, not punish. They should evolve to address genuine concerns like fair competition through inclusive regulations, not blanket expulsions that echo the tragic Ghana must-go saga of the 1980s, where reversed roles led to mutual suffering and lingering animosities. This will not only bring a bad name to Ghana on the continental and global stage, tarnishing your hard-earned reputation as a stable, investor-friendly haven in West Africa, but it will also hinder investors not only from Nigeria but from other countries across Africa that might want to come and invest in your promising markets. Word travels swiftly in our interconnected world, through diaspora networks, business forums like the African Development Bank's annual meetings, and digital platforms where entrepreneurs share experiences. When potential investors from Kenya, South Africa, or even Rwanda hear of Nigerians being targeted, their shops forcibly closed under the Retail Trade Act, they pause and reconsider. If Ghana treats fellow Africans this way, how will they treat us? This ripple of doubt cascades, deterring Pan-African ventures that could have transformed sectors like agribusiness, where Ethiopian coffee experts might collaborate with Ghanaian cocoa farmers, or fintech hubs drawing talent from Senegal's Dakar. The bad name manifests in lowered rankings on indices like the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report, where perceptions of xenophobia weigh heavily, scaring off venture capital that seeks inclusive environments. Ghana's allure as the gateway to Africa dims, replaced by whispers of instability, and with it, opportunities for joint infrastructure projects. Highways linking Accra to Lagos, renewable energy grids spanning the Sahel. Slip away, leaving your nation isolated in a continent racing toward integration. It will slowly crumble the economy of Ghana, eroding the foundations brick by brick until the structure that once stood tall begins to teeter. This crumbling is insidious, starting with subtle shifts. Reduced consumer choices leading to higher prices for imported goods, vacant commercial spaces in bustling areas like Makola Market fostering urban decay, and a slowdown in GDP contributions from the informal sector, which accounts for over 80% of employment in Ghana. As Nigerian capital withdraws, estimated in the hundreds of millions annually through trade and remittances, the multiplier effect kicks in. Local suppliers lose contracts, banks see loan defaults rise, and tourism suffers as cultural exchanges falter, with fewer visitors from Nigeria's vast population exploring Ghana's beaches and historical sites. The damage might be severe, manifesting in cascading crises. A ballooning trade deficit as alternative suppliers from Asia charge premiums, youth unemployment surging to levels that spark social unrest, and fiscal pressures forcing cuts to essential services like education and healthcare. Imagine a Ghana where the cedi's volatility mirrors the economic turmoil of the 1980s, or where reliance on IMF bailouts becomes chronic, all because a policy of exclusion choked off the oxygen of foreign investment. This is no exaggeration. Economic models from institutions like the Brookings Institution warn that protectionist measures in emerging markets often lead to 2 to 5% annual growth losses over a decade, compounded by brain drain as skilled Ghanaians seek opportunities elsewhere, further hollowing out your human capital. I'm not saying Ghana is bad, far from it. Your nation is a jewel of Africa, with a legacy of democratic resilience, cultural richness, and economic ingenuity that inspires us all. From the peaceful transitions of power to the global success of your cocoa industry and creative arts. But this policy about closing down Nigerian shops is a direct attack, a stark declaration that Nigerians are not needed in Ghana, despite the decades of intertwined histories and mutual benefits. It paints Nigerians as economic saboteurs rather than partners, ignoring how their enterprises have complemented, not competed against, local ones, filling niches in wholesale distribution, e-commerce, and hospitality that Ghanaians have leveraged for their own growth. This attack reverberates personally. It tells the Nigerian mother running a fabric store in Tima that her contributions to community taxes and local employment are worthless. It signals to the young entrepreneur from Port Harcourt that his dreams of regional expansion end at your borders. In essence, it's a rejection of the African family, stating through actions that brotherhood stops at the frontier, fostering an us-first mentality that contradicts the spirit of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which enshrines free movement and non-discrimination. We should not be marginalizing our own, turning Africans into outsiders on their own continent, perpetuating a cycle of alienation that weakens us collectively in the face of global challenges. Marginalization here means more than economic exclusion. It's the psychological toll, the Nigerian child in a Ghanaian school facing bullying over their accent, the cross-border family divided by deportation fears, the erosion of trust that makes regional bodies like ECOWAS mere paper tigers. Delving deeper, this marginalization revives colonial hierarchies, where Africans were categorized and controlled, now self-imposed. Ghanaians prioritizing pure local ownership while overlooking how such purity stifles diversity-driven innovation, as seen in successful melting pots like Dubai or Singapore. It ignores the data. Studies from the International Organization for Migration highlight how intra-African migration boosts host economies by 1 to 3% GDP through labor and skills transfer, opting instead for policies that breed resentment and potential backlash, like boycotts of Ghanaian goods in Nigerian markets. Why marginalize when we can integrate, creating hybrid success stories? Nigerian-Ghanaian joint ventures in oil refining, drawing on Nigeria's expertise and Ghana's ports, or shared tech incubators fostering the next wave of African unicorns. In closing, Ghana, I call upon you with the urgency of a brother witnessing a wrong turn. Halt this path of division, reopen the doors to our Nigerian kin, and recommit to the Pan-African vision that unites us. Let us build an Africa where prosperity flows freely across borders, where the success of one lifts all, and where regrets are replaced by triumphs. Together, we can forge a future of shared strength. Stop the closures, embrace coexistence, and let the black star shine brighter for every African. Thank you.